Good morning, folk. How are you all? Sorry about that. We just recognised we had a resolution that I needed Letitia to just do a wee bit of work on, and we've solved, I think, to get it right compared to when we adopted or recommended adoption of the annual report. So apologies for the slight delay, and for anybody that's online as well, I do appreciate your forbearance. Well, look, it's my privilege to welcome you all. I'm conscious that somewhere down the track we need to acknowledge Wendy before I forget it's your last meeting. When Wendy rang me and she said I'm tendering my resignation, I said I won't accept it. Apparently there were higher powers that actually would overrule me. So, which is sufficient to say. Often it's only when people leave you realise how important they are. I don't need you to leave, Wendy, to know how important you've been to this committee. So I'm not about to say I'm deeply distressed, that's the wrong way to put it. I'm incredibly proud of you and the work that you're going to do, which will benefit this council as well. But actually, the reality of it is that today it's a case of a sad loss. So I do wish you well. We actually have asked Wendy to do a guest appearance with some reflections towards the end of the meeting. But look, suffice to say, even though it's been way too brief, Wendy, thank you very much for all that you've done for the committee. I do appreciate that. I wonder if we could start, please, with the karakia, please. That would be great. If you join me. Whakataka te ho ki te uru. Whakataka te ho ki te tonga. Kia ma kina ki uta. Kia ma taratara ki tai. Ehi ake ana te atakura. He tio, he huka, he hahu, te he moriora. Thank you very much. I've said to Letitia I'm going to faithfully follow her run sheet today. Is that okay? So Letitia's got total control over me today. Can we move to the apologies, please? I have an apology, well, actually from John for early departure. Is he online? Oh, you're online. Okay, right. So, John, thank you, John. I'm not aware of who's online. Do we hear?
I'm online.
Yeah, good on you, John. Thank you for being here, buddy. And so, look, we've got you for leaving early. Are there any others? Yep. Any other? Oh, Pauiwi Kelly, thank you. Yes, and Tori? Leave about 10:30. Thank you. Got that. So that's, oh yes, thank you. It's okay, right. So the run sheet. Okay, now we're all in. And so let me just check. So we have Liz not here. We have John and Tori leaving early at that stage. I would just note, by the way, you asked to be free at 1 o'clock. I bravely have said the meeting will be finished by 1 o'clock, which is the aim. So,
and if we do need to go further, if we could have lunch at 1 o'clock, go to our meeting, and then we can come back.
It sounds like it's half an hour, but we'll try and do our best to get through by 1 if that's possible. So look, I'll move from the chair that we accept the apologies of Liz, Tori and John. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, whoever, Iona. I'll put the motion, all those in please use your remote control. Just testing you to see, right? All right. Right, thank you. Oh, Liz is not here. John, are you? Oh, how does John vote? He's not. He votes via Teams. There we go. Thank you, John. Motion's carried. Are there any matters coming up in the agenda that you needed to clear any interests for? I doubt that would be the case. Confirmation of our prior minutes, which is the 22nd of October, being previously sent to Diligent. I'll move from the chair. We take them as a true and correct record. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Rebecca. Is there any matters of accuracy or correctness you might have noted in those needed for those minutes? No? Please take your remote and vote on the motion, please. Thank you. Appreciate that. It's carried. There are no items, as far as I know, not on the agenda. We do have the supplementary paper, but we came out with the agenda, so I don't think we treat that as an item not on the agenda. So there are no additional items that I've been aware of. I haven't been informed either of any public participation. So gives us a chance to move straight then into our key matters. So the first one is the insurance update, November 2024. Sarah, and is it Andy as well? I got Andy's name down, but Sarah, you're here, so keen to hear.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Bruce, for the introduction. Look, this is our regular quarterly update to the Audit and Risk Committee. So I'll largely take the paper as read. There's been a robust question session on some of the content, so happy to take any further questions, but assume that those are largely covered. There was one question that we didn't have a chance to answer through the Q&A process that came through Democracy Services. It related to the Insurance Reserve Fund that we currently are building incrementally on our balance sheet. The question was around whether we've done modelling for whether this still is fit for purpose and when we might achieve what that outcome would have been. Yes, we've done some quiet modelling within the team. It is still very much the intention of this to grow it so that it could cover below excess, cover our excesses. It's currently sitting at around $14 million, so it could cover 1.5 of our deductibles in a large event. And the modelling suggests that depending on how we fund that over the next few years, we'll reach the target of $35 million between 2032 and 2037. So it's a long-term goal, that one. But happy to take any other questions.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So yes, we've had and thank you, Sarah, Andrea, and indeed the Aon team for a very useful question and answer session on Monday. I found it very helpful relative to the paper as a whole. So I would like you to just step us through the recommendations, but before I do that, are there any questions, residual questions or questions you've thought of over the last couple of days? So Diane and then Iona.
Yeah, so look, it's really about the difference from the 2.6 to the 1.8, and thank you for the explanation, and I understand why it's changed. But I'm just, because that's been a figure, the 2.6 has been quoted in a number of our documents which have gone out for consultation, even the LTP consultation document earlier in the year. Has Audit, our external audit, provided any feedback or any views on that, on the change, because that was part of the audited document?
It's fair to say we worked with the best information we had at the point in time when we did provide this information into the long-term plan. That information has now been subsequently updated through a process that we committed to bring back through this committee, I think when we at the genesis of the roadmap. So Audit have not interacted with this information. If that's a request that
no, I think the council will have to have its updated financial strategy audited, and so through that process the auditors will be looking at that.
Thank you. There was significant scrutiny on our insurance inputs to the long-term plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Iona.
So it was just a small question I wanted to ask. This captive feasibility study and where we hold this insurance potentially, it will be in a place which is fully governed by international law. It's just when they talk about Canary Islands, I kind of go...
So one of the items within the feasibility study will bring back to you advice about the domicile of where it's appropriate for us as an organisation to have that. We don't have an answer for you today where that should be, but it will be addressed through that feasibility study.
I'm sure you know that. It's just, you know, also perception sort of stuff. And then just the other question I had maybe for Andrea too. Look, obviously our colleagues were a bit surprised by the numbers. I'm just wondering, I know this is always the issue with this committee, that people find out stuff, whether there's potential maybe just to do a briefing next time around insurance, or just to do a few more regular updates to the committee.
So I think we have had numerous briefings to all councillors. We had one on the insurance roadmap that we did and scheduled earlier in the year to take them through the work that we're doing on the insurance roadmap, including the modelling that we were doing. That was held, I believe, in May. Could have been later. So we've been having regular workshops. That has been for the ARC, but all councillors were invited, and from memory, most councillors were in attendance of those sessions. So we will continue to have those. There was also the request that we come back and we provide a subsequent briefing on the captive and the catastrophe bonds, which was held in November. And again, all councillors were invited, and more than just the Audit and Risk Committee members attended. So I think we'll absolutely take on board the point that you're raising and ensuring that we keep this as an ongoing conversation for all councillors. But I think we have definitely had those meetings and we have been trying to keep everyone going along that journey.
It wasn't a criticism, it was just because people were obviously a bit surprised, and even if it is just a text to the mayor to kind of go, you might just want to communicate with your colleagues or whatever.
Yep.
Like just
so just as a reminder though, the modelling that has been done is on a different basis, and they are they're showing two very different things. They're giving you further information to inform your decisions. This isn't about a drop. This is about a different set of information that you can use in your decision making. So equally, we have been signalling this throughout our workshops and through our papers that we are undertaking this type of modelling that has been, we think is clear, but we can continue to have that conversation. The point around this is there's an articulation that this is dropped. I don't believe that is the case. What we've got is we've got a new set of information that can help inform your decision making.
Sorry, just one quick point, I take that point. It's just, obviously then we've got different baselines that we're going from, and then, so that's all taken, so we understand that now, and that hopefully that will help going forward.
I think it's important, Iona. Firstly, two things. Sorry, no, Geordie, I'm conscious you've got a question, but firstly, I wanted to endorse indeed what Andrea said. I think I was encouraged by the number who turned out on Monday, which was more than the committee, which I think was really important. And I think the other thing that it reflected was that this is actually, I know it's quite complex, and by hokey, when you're done your feet, assuming we pass a resolution, but if we get into things like captives, we are going to have to do more of the same. So I'm encouraged by what happened on Monday, and indeed the previous workshops. We'll have to keep rocking with that, which I think is important going forward. Geordie, you've got a question.
Yeah, I guess my question was, around some of that confusion about the perception of it being a drop in numbers, and I guess my question was around in the way that the council and committees choose to utilise this data. Is it kind of, from your perspective, more prudent to be using a probabilistic model and be aiming for that as the goalposts rather than the deterministic model, which tends to be more risk adverse? Or is that kind of something that you would like guidance from the council on?
Look, it depends on your purpose of what you want to use it for, to be honest. There are different components to the roadmap work plans that are there and available for everyone to see, and we've been working through all 4 work streams, as it's appropriate to sequence that work. There's another item on the roadmap that is called asset selection and prioritisation. The next round of deterministic modelling, which we're sort of alluding to up there, will help you as a council to determine if you wish to retain the assets that present the biggest risk. So, to my mind, it's about what you want to do with that piece of information. If you want to go and buy really good insurance and get really good coverage, what we've presented to you this week will help enable that process, because we can go and demonstrate to our insurers we have a much better understanding today than we did however long ago, the 31st of May, when we went there and got our last lot of insurance. We have a lot better understanding of what our risk profile is now, and we're committing to continue that evolution. And that says to our insuring partners that we are building understanding resilience. And so those purchasing decisions, which is another one of the insurance roadmap work streams, can be very well informed when we go back to London and we face into our insurers again next year and we ask them to trust us and sell us, more capacity so that we can protect our city and our assets in a really good, honest, and with our integrity intact way, if that makes sense. Yeah. So it's about what you want to do with that, rather than just using it as a sort of a peg in the sand and then moving on. We're living and breathing insurance all the time. We're not just going, yeah, that's done and we'll move on. Sorry.
I think also I'd add to that by noting that this is a highly complex area and you need different sources of information to actually inform your decision making. And what we're trying to do through the insurance roadmap is to provide you with those different sources of information as best we can.
Yes, go for it, Geordie.
Yeah, I guess that was my other question about the data, and I was just speaking to it briefly before, but in Resolution 3, it's about making sure that we do have the best available information to feed into that. Yeah, cool, thank you.
Rebecca.
It's just a very brief comment that I wanted to acknowledge, and you talked about the kind of the growth and understanding and sophistication of our work in this area, and I really feel like we've been, as elected members, have been on a sort of a sharp upward trajectory of building our knowledge as well, and I just really want to acknowledge both that that's been challenging for everybody involved, but also how kind of, grateful that I am to have built, my knowledge and seen councillors around me do so. So, yeah, thank you.
Good point. Ray.
Thanks very much. I just want to clarify something that you just said. You said, should we be looking at retaining the assets that present the greatest risk? Can you clarify that, your thinking on that, please?
That maybe if I cover off the resolutions next. But
yeah, you're welcome to do that, Sarah.
Effectively, Resolution 3 there, so we have an item on the agenda. So like I said, this isn't just a peg in the sand and we move on. We continue with this process, the work plan for data modelling and understanding our risk. The next phase of that data modelling, and we've asked for actually a 6 to 9 month kind of extension through this work plan so that we can make sure that the inputs to the data are very robust and they reflect the very good work we've done in our resilience work across the city. We've built base isolation into things like the town hall, Te Matapihi, those good things. We need to reflect that in the data that we're feeding into the next phase of modelling to ensure that each of those assets, because the next phase of deterministic modelling looks on each of those assets to see how much of that gap is driven by each of those assets. So it will allocate a risk profile to the asset level, whereas this is at the portfolio level. Right. So does that help answer your question?
Yes, that's good, thanks.
Thanks, Ray. Tony.
Yes, I just want to follow up on a bit of detail, which is the recommendation that some specific engineering review of each of the significant buildings be undertaken. I just wanted to see if you can confirm that should we do this, whether this will influence both the accuracy of our asset register further in terms of the potential loss, like this is influencing the probabilistic model, and or does it influence our ability to insure that building? And are these assessments taken on by our insurers as further evidence of the quality of that building?
Look, I think that piece of modelling will more inform your decision making about what we include within the portfolio. So it won't necessarily influence positively or negatively how we insure our assets, because we insure on a portfolio basis. We would never, I'm assuming I might look to my colleagues in the back and whether they would give me advice on this or not, but we would never say, well, we fully insure that asset at the expense of that asset. The approach to it is we have a portfolio. All of those assets are within the insurance program, and we buy insurance up to limits within there. So I think, sorry, can you just ask the question again?
Well, I'm just saying that, I'm particularly interested to say, because the probabilistic model, this is the first cut, and you've already outlined that it doesn't include surge pricing. You've noted there's about 3% of assets that are not in there. Will this extra piece of work refine the probabilistic model, but that refinement might mean that the cost might go up or down?
Potentially, that is a risk. So you would accumulate all of the various assets and etc. So it's more about different parts of the work stream. This is the next thing. So just in summary, to say that the deterministic modelling will say you can then make a decision to divest of an asset, choose not to insure an asset, or it's going to inform your decision making around how we do it rather than what we insure, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Tony. Are there any other questions for Sarah at this point? No? Sarah, sorry, Wendy, you do? Thank you.
Probably just checking. I had a couple of questions about the captive, but I wonder whether we do it as you step through the recommendations. Or, Chair, should I ask it now?
Yeah, I think ask it now is a good idea.
I guess the feasibility study, I think it was on Monday, wasn't it? We had an indication of the cost for the extra modelling. What is the cost of the feasibility study?
Yes, I think I gave you a rough estimate on Monday, and I got that quite wrong and got told off by my insurance advisor. Look, that will be done in 2 phases. Approximately, I think it's between 60 and 70 grand to do 2 phases. I'm getting 3 nods from back there. Yeah. So I think the first phase is around 25,000, and then there'll be a stage 2 to that. And we'll bring that back to you once we've got we can present back to you the components of those different stages, if that is helpful to inform the committee in making the decision on number 2.
Yeah, it was more the they were progressing on the captive, that option, and so, yes. Given it was we want to proceed that, I was just wanting to get an understanding of the cost. Yeah,
approximately 65,000 to do, and we have budget to do that.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a question of budget. It was a case of there is a trade-off, if you like, that you were seeking. So I was just looking for that, the cost aspect of it. The other question is, I noticed there was, under the legal considerations, you said there had been an initial review of the Local Government Act, and there's no reason Council couldn't set up a captive insurer, but this is being reviewed in depth. So I wondered whether any decision, if it was to proceed today, would be subject to confirmation of that before a feasibility study?
And that will be covered in the feasibility study as well. So essentially that will tell us if it's something that we can viably proceed with, given the organisational structure that we work within. So apologies, yes, it's refresh my memory, I had a lot of other things going on. Essentially, one of our legal team has done a high-level review of the Local Government Act and has also got some advice from an external legal some external legal advice to suggest that there is nothing that would stop us to set up a captive under the Local Government Act. There are concerns around issuing debt in foreign currency that will be prohibited under the Local Government Act, but this is quite a different proposition to that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Laurie.
Yeah, and this might be just memory with lots going on, but I just want to seek assurance that while we're doing the captive feasibility study, that will also be being done alongside and presented with a resilience investment fund or whatever we're calling it.
That will be done in a different phase. So what we're looking at doing, and we're doing work on the resilience fund now, and working through that, the review on the captive, because that will need to be consulted on as part of the LTP amendment process.
Okay, yep.
So we're doing that now at a high level. The captive work will still go on as a separate piece of process, but we can bring those 2 work streams together, and Sarah is constantly working with the team on that as well.
Right, okay, so when we come to decide, we'll be
So when you come to decide, the key thing will be setting up the Disaster Resilience Fund, because that's the resolution that we've got at the moment on the table, where we do a captive. Sarah's advice will bring back the advice from the team will bring back information on the linkages and all of those kind of things with the Disaster Resilience Fund.
Yeah, kia ora, thank you.
Thank you. That's great. Any other thoughts? Sarah, I would like you just to take it through. Well, actually, I've got a couple of comments, but I'll save that till you've talked the motion. We've got a motion on board. So can you just take us quickly through the proposed resolutions, please? I think we probably have covered them, but I thought it would be useful just to hear it in your words what we're trying to do here.
Good process, yes. So effectively received the modelling, etc. So we've rather covered off that, hopefully to your satisfaction, in the last week. Yes, so that's through the risk modelling workstream. Resolution or recommendation 2 is to agree to pursue a captive feasibility. So we did present, thanks to the team at Aon, and you had a couple of people online as well dialing in, talking about both captive insurance and catastrophe bonds. So effectively what we would like to do is ask the question about whether it makes sense for council to have one, and can we have one, noting the potential legal constraints, etc. So that's what that feasibility study is intending to do. And then, like we've talked a lot about probabilistic modelling through our insurance roadmap that we have tabled. Then the assumption would have been that we would have got straight into maybe that deterministic modelling, but we're essentially asking for us to push that into next year's work program so that we can have the time to ensure that the data is very robust and it's a very good set of information that we put in to the deterministic modelling, so that the outputs we get are good and robust also. So that's resolution number 3.
Thank you. I think that's useful to just have that explained. Do I have a person prepared to move this? Thank you, Ina. Tony, are we happy to second? Thank you. Okay, so look, is there any debate then on the motion? Do you guys want to speak first? Or any comments? Or do I put it to the motion? No, you okay? Sarah, I just want to make one comment, which, and I am in support of the motion, by the way, which is one of the things that I sensed out of, reinforced today, but certainly out of Monday, is and it is relevant to, I think, both the amendment but actually also our general insurance posture. I'll be very keen that a lot of the things that you've said, for instance, relate to actually us establishing our risk appetite. A captive is about, as you well explained and your colleagues explained, is about us assuming risk and being able to manage it. And I think we need to have that debate as a committee to then enable leadership to our council as a whole, and I think that's actually really important. The other thing, 2 things that I took at it was the numbers, which I understand why the numbers are important, but I can't see anything in this other than dealing with this in a range of numbers and probabilities, and I'm moved somewhat by the graph at paragraph 33, which says what the problem is. We still have a problem. And the other thing, which I know was me wanting to go at 100 miles an hour, but I do think, and I'm glad we've talked about a resilience fund, Andrea, that may be stuff that's happened elsewhere, which is a wee bit beyond my knowledge, but we have to take at least a long-term view on what we're trying to achieve here in terms of managing that risk. Hence poor old Sam suffering from my question on Monday, what's it going to look like in 10 years' time? Because it's not just dealing about the risk today, but it's actually the risk as it will grow and develop over 10 years. And I'd be very interested to see how we go. So this seems to me a really sensible set of resolutions to get us to keep that going. If I could just make that plea going back to the original, but I'm very keen that we investigate what are we really talking about here in terms of risk appetite. So thanks for that. Appreciate that. Thank you for the movers. Any other comments people would like to make on the resolution? No? If that's the case, can I ask you please to take your remote and we will vote, please. Thank you. The vote's carried. Appreciate that. Thank you, Sarah. appreciate your time. I think you're diving out now or something, so appreciate your time for being here this morning. That's great. Wonderful. And actually, also, by the way, I see Sam and other Aon guys down there. Thank you. And Andy, thank you for your work too. We obviously will see a lot more of you as this goes on. Can I move then to our second item, please, which is an update on where we're going with strategic risks. Rachel, welcome to the meeting. Great to see you.
So, kia ora. I take the paper as read. I presume you've had a chance to look at it. I just wanted to see if there were any questions, or would you like me to go over some of the points in the report?
I think just would be helpful for the purposes of the course of the committee. Just the key function of the paper is you're doing good work, and I'm wanting to encourage it. I would just like you to step us through what is your overall process. So, when I get out of this, we're probably going to have a session around strategic risks at some stage in the new year. But if you could characterise more what is the step in the plan, that would be helpful, please.
Yeah, so to save you the trouble of clicking on the link for the Auditor General's recommendations, so that was about putting in the formal risk management framework in place and having those components of the policy, a system-based solution, and making processes and having guidance that's easy for everybody to connect with and understand across the organisation. So not just focusing on the strategic risks for yourselves, but also helping others in the organisation up their maturity. Because if the organisation is mature or more mature as risk management practices, then you can have more assurance and confidence that we are escalating the right things to you and focusing on the right things. So another point of that is that, you get the support that you need and the confidence that we are managing risk well and improving. I wouldn't say we're perfect, but we're on a journey. And also that we consider more sophisticated techniques for managing risks, which that's how we apply the capital expenditure programs. And, I'm working with some of the teams across the organisation of how we can incorporate and embed risk management identification when building business cases, and also giving them guidance about the expectation of developing specific risks to what they're delivering as well. So just making things really crystal clear to everybody. And also, another key element is that we do have a desired level of risk management. We have done the assessment before. So what I'm trying to work at pace is to raise our maturity level so that the next time we do the assessment, we come out at a higher rating and we get closer to where we need to be. So that's my KPI, if you like, to get us to that point where I can do a successful assessment at the middle of next year. So realistically, that's why I developed the revised the strategic risk profile to a bow tie. So as I sort of talked about before, it helps us focus on what the controls are and how successful we are with the controls, rather than just focusing on the consequences, whether they related to that risk or not, which seemed a bit admin heavy and burdensome for the assessors, which is probably why we were only getting those assessments done every 2 years, or ad hoc for the more critical topics. But this way we can have assurance that everything's been looked at. I'm working with the SMEs about what frequency. Obviously, if something is rated as very effective and we're very confident with it, I can get an update from those individuals less frequently. And if something's coming through as a high concern, we can set a reminder from a system-based solution, that comes back with meaningful responses on the controls at a agreed frequency, probably quarterly, to align the KPI reporting, because that's the same system that we're going to trial in. That's why I'm working with that. So we're really moving away with that once and done attitude for the strategic risks. Well, not everybody had, but it is a common sort of misconception, maybe understanding that we review those strategic risks and then, I don't need to worry about that now. So moving away from that. Also part of the review is I had the second survey, so I've got some answers from there. It's still open if anybody wants to add. Quite similar to the themes we had before on governance, natural hazards, the local economy and the situation we find ourselves with, trust and confidence. So that's part of what I've been doing as well, is to review the distribution of the strategic risks now that we've had changes in ELT, moving those around, consolidating, perhaps retheming those, not completely dropping anything, maybe merging where we see synergies and therefore creating some space to bring through some of the emerging threats and themes that are coming through and allow space, because we also don't want to overburden the ELT so that their focus is diluted by having too many strategic risks under them because they fall under their remit. So trying to get that balance right of what we're looking at and why, and covering those off. So I think really the feedback that I've had from the subject matter experts in Tier 3s and ELT that I have engaged with have given positive feedback on the bow tie. They found it a lot simpler. They could see it being used for not just strategic risks, but also risk assessments and frameworks and tracking those other risks that are more like, high-rated operational risks that they can manage and bring down so they don't end up in front of your eyes because they've become critical. So the work's underway to do that. We have referred to, of course, other local government organisations, how they're managing risks and their policies and frameworks and systems. We met with Wellington Airport, some kind risk managers came and met us on the 18th of September, shared with us how they use Quantate. That's not the system we've got in-house, but, we could certainly learn. I've learned from that. And also they were very helpful and shared some documents with me afterwards, like templates that might help with when I'm developing the report that goes through to yourselves. So, not losing the heat map, not losing anything else that is useful and good risk management practices, but getting that through in a meaningful way that's not overburdening, and we can focus on the real matters that require your attention.
Thanks there, Rachel. Do we have questions or comments, please? Yes, Ray.
Thanks very much for this. Just thinking, when you were doing this reassessment, is that mainly because of internal requests or internal reasons, or are the assessors actually requesting greater detail on certain aspects? So, or is it a bit of both?
Right, Councillor, can I perhaps answer that, because and Rachel may want to add to that, but I think this is an area that I've picked up recently as a result. This used to sit under Steve MacArthur's mandate. I've picked this up. And part of this is there's kind of twofold, and Rachel's touched on this, in her introductory comments. The first is that we need a really clear understanding across the organisation of who is responsible for risk management. And the really easy answer is it's absolutely everyone. But a risk policy and a risk framework helps people to understand that and lean into that. And so that's what we're trying to develop there and be really clear about that. The second component is that we need we face so many risks, and they can be strategic, they can be organisational, they can be operational. As an Audit and Risk Committee, what we're trying to do is ensure that you're focused on the strategic, and I'll draw on some insights from Bruce. That's the area that you can add most value to us in our risk management journey, is focusing on those strategic risks. To do that, you need assurance as an Audit and Risk Committee that at an organisational and an operational level, we've got systems and processes in place to be looking at risk management. So we need to be able to bring you that assurance that those kind of things are happening. So on the projects that we're running, we need to be able to do that. And we also then need a mechanism to talk about our big strategic risks, like the one in the paper around financial planning and financial policy and planning, so that you can really see what we're doing at that big strategic level. So there's two elements to this. You can't be over everything as an audit and risk committee, so we're trying to give you the assurance that there's clarity across the organisation around roles and responsibilities. And as, supporting Rachel in this work, that's the kind of, that's what I'm bringing to this and have asked Rachel to really kind of lean into. And so we're working on that refinement, as Rachel's explained. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thanks, Ray. Any other questions or comments for either Andrea or Rachel? Yes, Iona.
Maybe a question for Andrea. Kind of more at a philosophical level. Organisations tend to be quite conservative, like large institutions like this. Are you confident that when things are emerging, that there is the ability to see them? Because just climate change, for example, it's been known about since at least the 70s, and it's taken a long time to filter through.
I think, so what I would answer to that, and Rachel, you may have a perspective as well, I think we're on a maturity journey. And I think part of that is we haven't necessarily, and the work that Rachel's doing is making sure that we're actually integrating this risk management conversation into decision-making frameworks across the council. And so that's what we really need to start focusing on so we can have those meaningful conversations. So I think that's the key. I think inherently local authorities will be conservative, and that is because we are making decisions on behalf of our communities, and our communities will bring different perspectives to that. And so, that is a core part of your decision-making process, and our role is to make sure that we're starting to lift the conversations in our risk management journey to enable those full conversations to happen.
Ask a supplementary, Bruce. Of course, that is our job, to listen to our communities, but facts are sometimes more important than people's possibly ill-informed opinions about, COVID vaccines or climate. So presumably that is in the mix.
Absolutely, and we will always bring advice to you on data, on metrics, on things that we can provide, to you in that regard. You will bring the community voice to those conversations as well.
Geordie.
Yeah, one of the things I'm trying to reconcile is through the strategic risks review, kind of the framing continues to be around risk, but I know to this committee we've had presentations about trying to frame risk through the lens of uncertainty. And so I guess when at a strategic level we're trying to shift our focus to how we manage uncertainty and the positives and the negatives that come with this, whether this is, how does that fit into the picture of kind of, inherently focusing on sort of the scary risk idea of it?
Well, when I conduct the sessions, when we bring the information from the old format that we reported on into the bow tie, I talk about the uncertainties around. We've got a topic. I'm also reframing them to be less negative rather than saying inadequate, which was the topic, the start of half of them. And we're looking at what are the opportunities, what opportunities are we trying to seize, what are the things we can't miss. So it's about the conversation that happens with the template as well, and the format, and bringing in their, some of the risks, we can't stop them happening. We can't stop an earthquake, but what we can do is be prepared and have teams in place and do all the things prior that we need to do, plus then be ready once something happens. So there's that element of reframing it in terms of a positive way of, giving people a chance, because by its inherent nature, strategic risk is really a red critical. So giving people a chance to say, hey, you're doing really well in this area. We've rated all of your controls effective, and therefore it's giving that positive, looking at opportunities. Okay, you've got lots of green controls here coming through. perhaps we have some more opportunities that we can use while we're doing really well, that instead of fighting fires, we can actually do some more proactive work in this space. So it's that reframing goes hand in hand, not just relying on the template to do all the work, but uncertainties is certainly in the conversation every time.
Geordie, I need to apologise too if uncertainty has added confusion. In fairness to Rachel, she picked it up because I said I like the word uncertainty.
I think there's a really important element here, though, that we continue to, as we mature on this journey, that does help shape the conversations that we have at a governance level. So a really important part of this journey is liaising with the Audit and Risk Committee Chair to ensure that our agendas are starting to map the maturity that we're working through this risk management approach. So that's an ongoing piece of work here as well.
Yeah, because I guess maybe this is similar to what Iona was saying, but I guess when I started to go through that sort of uncertainty work, one of the things that I started to think about was, our previous focus on risk and all of the negative things that we kind of want to control, in an aspect does mean that we are giving up some opportunity. And so I guess what I'm kind of trying to understand is through this framework, how we're applying the lens of we're trying to, control some of those things, but also being quite aware of the impact that our controls have on the organisation and the flexibility of staff to come up with something innovative.
Sorry, yes, and there can be knock-on effects of specific controls or events as they happen. So, we're also trying to build that into the system. At the moment, I have an intern who started a week ago, so our focus is on the minimal viable product, and over time we will improve it and add to it, and I'll get your feedback in February once we come to you with the report. So, but the key elements from the bow tie will be what's recorded in the system, and then we can work on that and getting that into a report and giving you some sort of data and assurance that the profile of the risk landscape is we've adequately covered everything that we need to cover. So that's what we're trying to achieve.
Thanks, Geordie. Appreciate the question. Any other points or comments? Yes, Wendy.
I probably shouldn't comment since my last meeting, but look, and it's great to see that the work continues. It's probably more a comment than a question. Just the need, I guess, the strong need to sort of reinforcing your comments, Chair, just about the risk appetite being a key sort of task for this committee and for Council. To guide it, because ultimately for me these things are there to help good governance, good decision making, and we shouldn't lose that's the end, rather than this information helps people to think about the right things, have the right conversations. So I think when I looked at the dashboard and the risk reporting, I think there's still a little, just my feedback would be there's still too much in there, but that might be more for how management need to think about it, sort of so you can see the thought process. But when it comes through, that you're trying, and I see this quite a lot, because the natures of some of these risks is that they're extremely interconnected. And so different things can cause them and consequences, and you have even more sophisticated frameworks that try to capture that dynamic nature of risk. But I think if you can even look at just the risk description for just the example you gave here, to me that it doesn't really, if I look at the bow tie, I can get it, but there's still quite a lot of things being covered there. But really nailing a description is what is the key strategic risk here when it comes to financial planning and practice, and in fact, are they the same? So it's more very happy to continue providing other feedback before I disappear, so to speak.
Well, we know where you are. We might even get your advice afterwards.
Look, I guess the overall point is very much endorse the sort of the core plank that this provides for Council going forward, and the need to invest in it well, and to really focus on simple, focused things that help people sort of use the tool for what it's there for. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Any other final thoughts? I wonder if we could move to the resolution, please, which is that we receive Rachel's report, obviously waiting with bated breath for the next meeting where I think, if I picked it up correctly, we'll have a crack at the strategic risks, which is really important to start our piece of the journey, which will be good. So look, I'll move from the chair that we receive information. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Rebecca. I think that was you, just saying vote. I'll take it you're seconding. Can you take your remote? Can you take your remote, please, and vote? That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Oh, I thought I'd voted. What do I? There we go. I'm my tongue in the right place. Brilliant. There we go. It's Karen. We're just minus, I think, is that our auditor? Is that Karen? No, I'm looking for my auditor. We haven't, she's not here yet, which is sort of moderately critical to the next item. Look, and in fairness to her, I know she's got some pressure at another client, which she's got to attend to today as well. I wonder, is it possible to deal with health and safety, or is TJ around? Is he running downstairs? Well, could TJ run fast, if that's okay? And, pardon? You're right. Oh no, run safely, fast. Yeah, look, does it feel like that way? In fact, Letitia did suggest a cup of tea at this stage. Why don't we? It's down there, is it? Why don't we have a short break? We will get TJ down here if that's okay. Please, we'll deal with that next, and hopefully it gives Karen a chance to either appear on screen or be with us in the room. Yeah, that's what I'm conscious of. So. we have just reformed our meeting because we're conscious that we're aware Karen, our auditor, has another necessary commitment at 11 o'clock for half an hour. So what I'm proposing to do is take Letitia's great advice. We're going to deal with everything else, including the PX items, and then come back to the greenhouse gas reports and the opinion as the last item, probably, given that's where that allows Karen to deal with other matters, as well as also deal with us, which is great. So that means at this stage we are skipping the greenhouse gas report, and we're straight into health and safety. Now, before we start, Wendy, TJ, this is your last meeting, mate.
Yeah, it is my last meeting.
Cobber, what's the story? Come on. Oh, gee,
Not by choice. My partner said
we
really,
just trained you up and you're going to Aussie, is that
yeah,
right?
really good opportunity overseas that we can't say no to.
Well, look, congratulations, TJ. It's funny, I have no premonitions in my life, but I was wondering about your career when I was reading this paper. And I walked in today to find it's your last meeting. So, TJ, we have benefited brilliantly, not just from you, Wendy, but particularly from you, TJ, in the lead you've done in the development of this plan of improvement. And indeed, what you're reflecting in this paper of ongoing improvements. So, I suspect Wendy knows the loss that you will be, but actually I just want to acknowledge we recognise, the great work that you have delivered for us over the 3 or 4 years that I think I've known you, and we'll miss you, mate. Let me just say, we're loaning you to Aussie. We'll expect to see you back, buddy.
Always come home. Kia ora, I appreciate it.
So well done, thank you. Anyway, we'll get into the paper. Wendy, TJ, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we'll take the paper as read. However, just a couple of opening comments from me. I just wanted to highlight the work we're doing around the contractor management project, and just reiterate that we are looking to leverage off our electronic system, MySafety, and use this really as a platform to collect information from contractors. So this isn't about the management of our contractors per se. However, we've run a number of workshops across the organisation, and we are really pleased with where we are actually at with the management of our contractors. We've had some really good insights and we've got no immediate concerns. So this is really going to strengthen that consistent platform of health and safety information from our contractors going forward. So we're excited that we're in the process of that at the moment. The second thing was just the completion and launch of our review of all our safety management system documents. So you would have known that we've been talking about this for some time. We've completed the project, we've reviewed the 95 documents, and now we're working consistently against those documents as an organisation. But we will move our attention now to an internal audit of those documents. So we want to make sure that that continuous improvement happens, and we'll be internally auditing those ourselves as we go forward. And obviously, as you just said, Chair, we do lose TJ, and yeah, it is a big loss, and he has set the platform for the reports that you see today, but we are also excited about bringing on board Alice Ash, who is an internal appointment, and will join the team next week actually, and work alongside TJ for a number of weeks, so hopefully it's a smooth transition for everybody.
Great. Oh, that's good. We look forward to seeing Alice as well. Thank you for that, Wendy, and those comments. TJ, is anything you need to add?
No, I think I probably would just reiterate Wendy's points around the insights from the contractor management workshops have been really heartening to see that safety is really at the forefront of our contract managers' minds when it comes to the works being delivered. I think I probably went into those workshops thinking I would maybe find a few concerning things, but I was really pleased to see that practices are really good across the organisation. And the real risk that I've seen is really around visibility and assurance. And so we'll be really targeting those in the new year with the system design.
Brilliant, thank you. So do you have questions or comments for Wendy or TJ, please? So Iona and then Tony,
I've got a few, so maybe
and then Laurie.
Maybe I'll just do 3 and then come back on the list if that's okay. Look, good to hear about the contractors. The group of people I'm always most concerned about are the water and waste workers. So because there have been deaths there, so you feel confident that the systems are in place that we won't suffer more tragedies like we've had in the past.
I don't have a crystal ball, so I'll prefix it with that. What I've seen through the conversations I've had with the contract managers out in those particular areas is that there are systems in place. In fact, I think across the landfill operation, there is a significant amount of systems and a lot of discussion always around how we can be better. And I'm hoping that in the new year, with the new system and the increased visibility, that we'll be able to bring that data to provide better assurance.
Okay. That is helpful. I did one of those safety visits a couple of weeks ago. They've said, one of the things to look out for was whether people's sitting arrangements were okay. I would have assumed that was all a matter of good practice and that shouldn't really need to be checked in. It should all be sorted. You know, like that people's desks are set up properly and that sort of thing.
Oh, in terms of ergonomics of so look, we've got really good information that we've reviewed as part of our safety management system. In fact, TJ was even updating it slightly this morning, and that information is shared out across the organisation. We have a really good opportunity for a reset before the move as well, and then as part of the move. So not only are we looking internally at what and how we're set up within this building or our work sites, but that also encompasses people working from home.
Okay, so you would literally be checking everyone's desk setup is okay when you go into the new building?
I mean, not individually, and we certainly, I mean, it is a personal preference how people set up their desks. What we do is provide really good guidelines around that and what that looks like, because what might be good for me might be quite different for TJ in terms of how the height, the length, whatever we set up and how we work individually. So we'll have a mechanism to make sure that there's a feedback loop, and if people need support, then we'll support that.
Okay, thanks. I'll go back on the list. Cheers.
Tony.
Yes, so I'm really pleased you're looking at contractors. I was just wondering if you could explain a little bit where you draw the line as to who is and is not a contractor. I mean, because it's a very broad, like, you know, in a sense, couriers who come to this building are contractors. So if you could explain that.
Yeah, you're quite right. It is a broad term. Where we have drawn the line in terms of scope for this particular project is the terminology we use internally here is an FTE contractor and a non-FTE contractor. And so if there are people in this organisation working in a role that would or could otherwise be done by a staff member, we would call them an FTE contractor. We treat them as staff, and so they fall under our regular safety management system. The kind of contractors we're looking at in this project are really the people who are delivering external services, things like our landfill providers, our construction workers, people who are doing assets maintenance around the city, where there is risk in the work that they're delivering.
Okay, and does that include Wellington Water?
No, Wellington Water we would classify as another PCPU, and we would manage as you would at your other overlapping duties.
Okay, and does it apply to those sort of contractors to our CCOs?
Again, we would consider our CCO as another PCPU.
Okay. Yeah, I know, you've got to draw the line somewhere, I just want to be clear, and so good on you. The second thing is, I was wondering, particularly around sole traders and the very smaller contractors, where there's opportunities to perhaps extend some of our resources to help them, because often the things like templates and best practice guides and that they don't have access to. Is that part of this?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, and that's something we've identified, particularly in our assets team, our PSR assets team. They deal a lot with individual sole traders, and they don't have the resources or the time to provide the same quality of material like a Fulton Hogan would. And so this project will help streamline some of those tools and provide access to our contractors that need them.
Okay, that's really excellent. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Geordie. Oh, no, Laurie, sorry. Laurie, then Geordie.
Yeah, kia ora and thank you for the mahi, TJ. Just the staff injury types, like apart from the number that there were 11 of each, was there any other pattern for that top 3 formed that you noted?
No clear patterns. Our staff injury types tend to be pretty consistent. They mostly sit in that pain and discomfort space. And I think, again, that kind of relates back to ergonomics as well, which is why it's always a keen focus for us that we're reiterating the information and the checks. It's also why we have things like the early intervention program where if somebody is experiencing discomfort at work, then we'll give them preventative physiotherapy to prevent a more serious injury.
Great. Just the personal confrontation, it's a constant. Just there was another spike, thankfully not as great as the one earlier this year. Was there any reason for that spike? And just the same question, what area is the personal confrontation coming from?
No clear definitive reason for the spike, and again, it was spread across our front-facing areas. You still see it in parking, libraries, rec facilities. There was reported more personal confrontation in rec facilities than before. What we're looking at in terms of the personal confrontation risk profile is whether it needs to be split into 2, because what we're seeing in the data is there's a lot of antisocial behaviour which is currently being classified as personal confrontation, but perhaps could be treated slightly differently, in that it's not inherently confrontational, nor does it often lead to confrontation. And so looking to split out that risk profile into 2.
Okay, and are we seeing any correlation, sorry Chair, last one, correlation between staff retention and that personal confrontation?
I haven't done the analysis, so I can't tell you confidently, but I can take that away and have a look and see. It would probably be a little bit difficult to draw a line between the 2.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Laurie. Geordie.
Yeah, I was just looking at, I guess, this fantastic trend for your average reporting delay and your average assessment delay, and the fact that you have seen a minor increase in the volume of incidents. So I was just wondering if you could talk briefly to maybe what interventions you made in that space to bring those down, and whether that's something we'll see sustained or whether it's just kind of a blip.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll speak to reporting delay. I mean, they're all kind of related, all 3 of those metrics. The biggest intervention was obviously the introduction of My Safety. And I think if you look further back in the average reporting delay, even before that April 23 marker, our reporting delay was up in the 40 days, sometimes even as far as 200 days. And when we introduced the new system, that dropped immediately. I think other interventions are obviously a better or more intentional monitoring and reporting. You can see that in these reports. There are similar dashboard reports that the business partners use in their conversations with leaders as well. And so these metrics are a keen focus of continued conversation, and that's really what's helped drive it down. It's also what's helped drive increased reporting. I'm hoping that they are sustained because it is a conversation point. It's a core part of our strategy. What I will say is when we were looking at assessment delay 12 months ago, the way that we looked at it was slightly off, and we recognised that our assessment delay wasn't 100% accurate, and so we adjusted that about 6 months ago, and you can now see that assessment delay dropping as a result of us interpreting it better and being able to have good conversations with leaders about that.
Thanks, Geordie. Iona, you've got another question?
So this worker participation agreement, that's all very positive, and obviously we've never seen it. Can you just outline a little bit what is in there and how much power, I guess, it gives to particularly the lowest paid in our organisation?
Yeah, I'll speak to the first part of your question, and then I might hand over to Meredith. Our worker participation agreement outlines really the systems that the organisation has in place to ensure continuous improvement and involvement of workers in health and safety matters. It also outlines the system that the council uses for health and safety representatives, which is part of the health and safety legislation. In terms of how it empowers the lower part of our workers, I might hand that over to Meredith.
Yeah, kia ora, Councillor. Sorry, a frog in my throat. We are required by law to have this. It's part of the legislation, as TJ said, and we work with our unions on this as well. So it's our way of ensuring that workers have the ability to raise any health and safety concerns. It's not linked to their remuneration, if that's what you were asking about.
It's harder to raise issues when you are the lowest paid as opposed.
So that's not what the purpose of this is. This is about being able to confidently raise concerns and issues either through sensitive events, which we have a module within My Safety, if they are struggling to raise it through their teams or managers. So we have mechanisms about to keep people safe if they want to be able to raise it. We also obviously have the ability to whistleblowing aspects as well for people to raise if for serious concerns. But there is, given the fact that we have had so much uptake of reporting, including near misses or concerns, including sensitive events, we're comfortable that there isn't a culture where people don't feel that they can't raise things. And that's been a huge amount of the work that's been done through the health and safety strategy and the ongoing Safe to Speak Up mahi that we've been working through in the last couple of years in support with risk insurance.
And then my other question was around public meetings. Now, there's probably a broader piece of work to do around this, and I'm going to talk to Anna this afternoon about it. But I guess my concern is about how we get the balance right between being accountable to our communities when we do things which they might not like often, but also protecting staff. Because we sort of had an example of where people weren't allowed to talk for an hour and a half at a recent meeting. So I was just wondering if you had any thinking about what other councils are doing in terms of public meetings and getting that balance right.
Yeah, in terms of, we've been working really closely with the security team as well. The business partners, for people that are doing those public engagements or community engagements, they're working through often a risk assessment. So what are some of the potential risks or hazards that they may come across in those forums, and I guess putting in some controls that we know of. In terms of what others are doing, I actually met with the regional managers a couple of weeks ago, and this was a hot topic for everybody, and it's probably not even just regionally, I'd say it's nationally, in terms of these sorts of forums and trying to get that balance right. None of us had the right answers and that, but it started that conversation because we want to be sharing information and understanding what is actually going on out there for all of us, and how best to manage it going forward. So we're going to be sharing some really key information going forward in this space.
Okay, and that will flow through in practice citizen action. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Laurie, you've got a...
Yeah, just our team's mental health and well-being. What category do we measure that through? And so is it? So I've just clicked out of that. Yeah, what group does it come under? So is it under personal confrontation?
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you now.
Mental health first aid.
The metrics that we use to sort of monitor and scan mental wellbeing in the organisation are a range of things. We're actually just about to do an inclusion survey, which I believe may still have wellbeing questions in it. So that's an annual snapshot, and I think that information can come later. But what we do on a month-to-month basis to monitor wellbeing is look at our EAP use and themes. What I will say is that the conversation around mental health has become a lot louder, and so the use has increased as a result. It's not to say that people are more mentally unwell. I think it's that people have better access to the resources, and that's what I'm hearing from the conversations with our suppliers. There are a range of other things we're also doing proactively to protect the mental health of our workers. We're currently piloting a professional supervision program with our business partner teams who deal with various different sensitive and mental health related topics within the organisation, and that helps them sort of process what they're hearing and experiencing. So that's kind of what we're looking at. I don't think that there's a large issue, but the positive news story is that people know about the resources that we have and they are using them.
Okay, and so I guess just in the future as a governor, how would I guess what I'm looking for is if I were asked publicly about how the mental health and wellbeing is of this organisation, I think is it possible that we could have some indicator through our reporting that we can get a sense check of that?
Yeah, I think I might pass over to Meredith to talk about the organisation's approach to wellbeing and the work that we're doing in the psychosocial factors space briefly.
Thank you.
It's a big topic, and I remember raising it at Audit and Risk when I did my report last August. So psychosocial safety, and including the ISO standards, we are building into all our work through the health and safety team. Equally in the culture and capability team, we've launched this year a refreshed wellbeing resource, Epikura, Te Wai Whakaata, and that is enabling all sorts of different types of wellbeing to be available and resources available to our kaimahi, not just around mental health, because wellbeing is bigger than that. But when it comes to reporting, it's a number of factors. It's no one single thing. So obviously we have our engagement survey, which we do annually, and we report on that to you. That is the EAP. It is the number of sensitive events. It's a range of things. And it could even include if we have days where people are not able to work, that we've been able to monitor through accidents because there's fatigue or whatever. So it's no one single data point, but we can look at doing a deep dive for you in the future around employee wellbeing with a number of factors that will provide that bigger picture. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
And Laurie, I would expect that at some point, I mean, I think any committee, risk committee monitoring health and safety would receive at some appropriate stage, clearly anonymised, but relevant information that gives that sort of data. Yeah, no, that'd be fine.
Next question is, and maybe it's more of a comment, could we make that a semi-regular, even an annually or whatever would be appropriate? I think just so that the council can be assured that we've got our eye on that one. Yeah.
Through you, Chair, can I also suggest that if we have concerns because there is an event-related mental health issue, that we would raise that potentially in PX, or rather than just annually as a culmination of where our people are at. But if there is something going on that we have started to have to do far more reactive work to, we would be raising that through this committee.
I would think in response to your comment, Laurie, I mean, I would have said 6 monthly, but annually I can handle, even if it's only the one indicator of the EAP. But I mean, obviously there's a staff survey as well. So I would expect from a general practice perspective reporting 6 monthly, if that makes sense. So Wendy, I wonder if you could just take one on board and think that one through. I'm pretty certain we've seen the EAP results here before, but to formalise it, will be good news. Any other questions or comments, folk? We had a fair crack here. Right, can we just move to the resolution then, please, which is that we receive this report. I almost want to add a second one and thank TJ. So I'm going to move that anyway. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Tony. Appreciate that. I'll put the motion. Can you take your remote, please, as TJ disappears, and we'll see you around, buddy. No, we definitely haven't got Karen here. Yeah, South Whiringa. Yeah. Okay, can we move then? As I said, we are still going to hold out on coming back to GHG reporting. So 2.4 decision register updates, reasonably just tidy up matters. Letitia or Andrew, anything we need to say on this other than just receive the information?
I'll take it as read.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Things are reasonably tidy. I'll move. We receive the information. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Tony. Take your remotes, please. Better check where I'm at, Letitia. Make certain I'm with the run sheet. I haven't turned a few pages for a couple of sessions. That's a worry. We're up to moving into public excluded. Oh, I voted. I did. Just the wrong way around. There we go. Is John with us or is he left? He was going to leave early, wasn't he? He's gone. Okay. So I think we can treat that as carried. Thank you very much. So look, item 3 is we've got 3 matters to deal with and they are all in PX. I think they are good reasons to deal with these in PX. So I'll move from the chair for the reason stated that we move into PX. So I have a seconder, please. Thank you, Tony. Any discussion on the motion? Yes, Diane.
I have a real concern with Te Kāinga update being in public excluded. There may be the odd paragraph that might be sensitive, but the majority of the paper should be in public. I mean, this is work that this council is doing. The public are entitled to know what investments happening on their behalf. And having basically pretty much an operational report provided, I don't think it really meets the grounds to withhold the paper. Now, officers may have a view and they think there may be, some aspects that should be held in confidence, but I think the majority of the paper, when I've read it, it should be in public. And I'm really concerned if we have a debate and conversation about our Te Kāinga program of work, that we are not serving the people that we represent.
Thank you, Diane. Was there any comment from management on that? Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, look, I take the point, and we do intend to release the paper with the commercially sensitive parts redacted immediately after the meeting. The team reviewed the paper and about 25 of the 52 discussion points. They're not all considered to be commercially sensitive, but what they would do is impede our ability to negotiate further deals, because we're sort of explaining all of the perceived risks with the programme and where we might have challenges in negotiations, and if we then went into a negotiation, that would put us on the back foot. But yeah, we do intend to release the rest of the paper in public immediately after the meeting.
Thank you. Look, and it might be just useful when we deal with your paper, you give us a quick hint about that. Diane, can I say as chair, I certainly took a contrary view to yours, that actually I thought the weight of this is sensitive, taken as a whole. So let's have that chat at the end, Paul, just what you anticipate releasing. That would be great to hear. Any other comments? Yes, Tony?
Yes, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I generally support that, but I also agree with Councillor Calvert that there are significant amounts of this, which I think should have been made public before the meeting, so that people would have a chance to see those elements and that we're addressing them, So, and because by putting this, having nothing in the public arena, it denies people the opportunity, for example, to come along and take part in public participation. And releasing it after the fact, I don't think is as good as we can do. And I did raise this actually at the chair's briefing. And while I understand that we're still early days and perhaps we should err on the side of caution, I still think that my own opinion is that Councillor Calvert has some grounds to say that we want to make sure that the public are coming along with us and that they know what we're doing. Thank you. But we can talk about that in public excluded debate.
Thank you for that. Appreciate that. I think I'd like to move on. We've obviously got some contrary views, but we understand that. So I do think it is time to vote. So actually, do I have a second on the T-shirt? I've moved it. Oh, and Tony seconded. Okay, right. So let's move. I'll move the motion. All those in favour. Well, actually, please vote. Whatever is the right way to do this, please. Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you. No, we've got. Oh, Tony's voted against it. Right, motion's passed. Thank you. reporting. Very, very interesting. Great report. Just we'll wait for confirmation that we're back in public session. Don't worry, Ona, I've got 1 o'clock in my eye. I think we'll get there. Oh, easily, absolutely easily. Oh, I think we need. Yes, I think we need our auditor up here, don't we? Yeah. Have I got that wrong? I made that assumption. G'day, Alison. How are you? Right. Are we good to go, Letitia? Thank you. Appreciate that. Rightio. So the item is our greenhouse gas inventory reports for the last 2 financial years. So Alison, I suspect you're kicking this one off, are you?
Yes.
Okay. In your hands, please.
I will take the paper as read. We have had 2 years' worth of greenhouse gas data going through the assurance process this year. Prior to that, we had Toitu as our auditor for our greenhouse gas accounts. Then we used PwC for 1 year until we realised that it would be much more efficient if Audit NZ provided our assurance opinions for our greenhouse gas data, because they have to audit it to a certain extent as part of our annual report audit. So rather than a separate entity doing the same audit procedures over the same data, we thought having one entity look at it once would be a more efficient use of both officer time and auditor time. So I'm very pleased to get us to this point where you have before you 2 years' worth of data, and Audit NZ have, I think, substantially finished their work on that, which will mean that we'll be able to report these results in Te Atakura, which is coming before you on the 5th of December. Any questions?
Brilliant. Just one question about process. Karen, does this give rise to a separate report from you in the form of an opinion as well?
Yes, it does. It's a agreed by procedure.
Yep.
An assurance procedure.
I figured that. So there will be somewhere, obviously not drafted at this point. I'm just conscious that we're being asked to approve. So my assumption is that actually we're approving on the basis that we have got an
assurance report
a
coming.
level of assurance that is appropriate, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a limited assurance report?
Yes, it's a limited assurance report, and the opinion is imminent.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah, great.
We're in our very final quality assurance processes. The reason being this is a reasonably new area, and therefore, we're taking time and making sure that we have the documentation and it's all being considered, especially with some of the figures being restated due to new information and a different methodology.
Brilliant. Look, no, that's fine, Karen. I just wanted to make certain that we can approach these resolutions with that basis that bar the shouting, we're there. And it also reflects the importance of having a delegation for matters to be dealt with by Tony and me, should something arise. Who knows? Okay, so folk, do we have questions here? Yes, Laurie.
Yeah, can you just give me a summary, Alison, as an overview on how you would talk to the performance of the reports rather than the process?
Sure. So FY21 is our base year. In the Te Atakura 2021, Council has set a reduction target to reduce emissions by 2020 and 2030 by 57% of its Scope 1 and 2 emissions. That's a science-based target and it lines up with our city-based target. We have reduced emissions over that time period from FY21 to FY23 by 45%, and we have projects that are have budget allocation in the 2021 LTP that will achieve the rest of that reduction target by 2030. So we're feeling confident, in other words, that we will achieve the reduction target, and very pleased with the reduction made so far, which has primarily been through improvements at the landfill, along with some energy efficiency improvements, for example, in our fleet. In terms of Scope 3 emissions, because they're outside of our control and or less under our control and highly estimated, we have set a science-based target of engagement. So we want to have 2/3 of our supply chain emissions coming from suppliers who have also set science-based targets. The implication being that if your suppliers have science-based targets, then your Scope 3 emissions will fall, because they are also trying to reduce their emissions significantly by 2030. We currently have 22% of our supply chain emissions are covered by science-based targets.
Chair, are you okay with a couple more questions? So I guess the next question is, do we have a procurement strategy to achieve that 2/3 of Scope 3 through the engagement process?
Yes, we've been working very closely with commercial partnerships. We've already done a supplier engagement process last year where we interviewed the top 55 suppliers that we have that cover about 80% of our emissions, and asked them if they had greenhouse gas accounting, had a target. We're basically on this journey, and we got very pleasing results. Like 70% of the people we interviewed said they did. So we're on the right track, and we're also working with procurement on putting emissions standards into our procurement processes, so that for the large contracts, there is an agreement that they will report emissions and, where possible, reduce emissions.
Great, okay. So then just next question for Karen. So with doing this for Wellington City Council, is this a long-term trajectory for Audit New Zealand to be running this for all councils?
Because it's a by-engagement audit, it depends on whether we're requested by councils to provide this service. So Wellington City contacted us because they were seeking a loan from our GFA, which required assurance reports over their inventory stock takes.
Okay. I've got lots of questions, but maybe I'll take them offline. But one big one I have is actually around Spicer landfill, because as councillors, we're aware that we have a strategy to reduce our emissions across, especially across waste. We are part owner in that landfill, and as best as I can ascertain, there are no strategies, plans being actioned to reduce waste. So what liability do we carry being a part owner of that landfill? Sorry? Okay, maybe I question, it's a personal opinion that I see that being actioned, but they're growing landfill as opposed to reducing,
So specific to Spicer landfill?
Yeah.
So in our emissions inventory, that's counted as an investment. So we have an ownership stake in Spicer landfill, is my understanding, but not operational control or day-to-day running of the landfill. So we don't have direct liability, we have Scope 3 liability.
Okay, so same as the airport?
Pretty much.
Okay, thank you. I'll hand back to you.
Thanks, Laurie. Iona.
First of all, well done for getting them down 45%. Okay, so that's something to celebrate, because, it's hard.
That congratulations goes to the waste team and the runners of the landfill, but yes, they've done an amazing job.
And it's been hard one to, get all that in place, so that's good. And I'm glad you think that you get to the 57, so that is good. I have a question about the science-based targets. Is everyone operating off the same science-based targets?
When I say that term, so I'm also on the Sustainability Committee at LGFA, so I'm part of the committee that assesses the climate action loans. I recused myself from the approval of our own climate action loan, just to be clear. We use the calculators that come from the Science Based Target Initiative to assess whether a council has set a robust enough target for reductions that we would approve the climate action loan. The 57% that we have set as an organisation is stronger than we require, And we set that target because, one, we could achieve it, and two, it lined up with our city-based emissions reduction.
Okay, and so those are being benchmarked by the latest science. It is.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So that is a good thing. I guess, though, the issue is whether, as a city, we're going to meet targets, and obviously, I know we don't have so much control over them. How are you feeling about that generally?
That's out of scope for this paper. We can discuss that robustly on the 5th of December if you would like.
Yes, I would love to. Okay, so that's not too far away. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Laurie?
Just one more question. Just on page 53, there's a beautiful graph. It's got showing, I guess, I'm looking for a measurement on how many more emissions we will reduce if we go ahead with our long-term plan strategy. Can we ascertain that through those graphs?
Yes, so we need the additional, so 45% to 57%, so we need that additional 12%.
Yep.
From memory, the sludge processing facility coming online and the curbside organics were a large proportion of that, but also we can't reach target without the degasification of the pools.
Okay, yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Hi, Anna.
As you know, I'm not happy about the climate mitigation money being chopped. So do you think that will make a difference in terms of us reaching our goals? I know
Again,
some of them is a
Councillor,
bit outside, yeah.
that's outside of scope for this paper. Our council emissions reduction target can be met with the budget allocations that are in the current LTP.
Okay. Can we go further?
Can I say
no.
that's a question, I think, for the 5th or somewhere like that, if I can be honest, Anna. We are here to discuss, is this a good report? Are these reports able
Robust.
to be approved? In other words, there's a level of process here. I actually think your question's a really good one. I don't want to invalidate the question, but I think we had a strong indication that actually the use of this information comes from the 5th onwards, and I think that's really good, because I would really encourage careful analysis here, because I was interested in the scope 3, the change between the 2 years, which of course is going in a different direction, and that may be because we had better information, for instance. But I'm not asking you to comment on that, because that's what I'm trying to say is that's for once we have adopted and approved these as being with the limited scope engagement reasonable to work with, which is really, really useful. So I just want to reflect on that these are a great set. These are a great set of statements. Can I just ask a couple of questions, please? One is the form of the report. This is just one we've developed, Alison, or does it follow any sort of standard that is required?
The reports are written against the greenhouse gas protocol standards.
Yep.
And so they contain what information you have to report for it to be compliant with that standard. Audit NZ then use SA 3410 as their method for checking whether our statements match the greenhouse gas protocol.
Right. Great. Good. And again, look, I would just go back to the point that Karen, it's obvious that we are close to signing, which is really, really good. That's me. Is there any other questions or comments folk would like to make about these reports? Have you asked sufficient questions to maybe look at the motion, which is that we essentially recommend to Rebecca's committee that they approve these 2 sets of statements? Great. Can we go to the resolutions, please, which are in front of us? Which is that we receive the 2 reports. We note the draft reports and information that may change on the completion of the assurance engagement, although that's probably now, if I can use the risk phrase, low in terms of risk. We note the attached greenhouse gas inventory emission reports stating the position of Wellington City and Group, and we recommend to the Long-Term Plan Finance and Performance Committee that they recommend to Council approval. Sorry. Plugging difficult resolutions, Rebecca, believe you me. That they recommend to Council that you approve these and obviously at that stage it'll be accompanied with the assurance, the limited assurance report from Karen. But while it still is in draft, it's important that there be a couple of delegations that remain, one for me and Tony in case there's any significant matters, and one for Barbara to deal with any minor editorial changes which may or may not arise between now and then. Okay? You happy to move that? Thank you. Okay, do I have a seconder? Thank you, Ray. I sense people are keen. I've got one other matter before we close, by the way. I just want to warn you of that. So I wonder if you could take your remotes, please, and vote for the last time at a risk committee in 2024. Brilliant. Okay, that's closed. That's a great set of reports. Look, I would just like to close the meeting very quickly because I said I want to be out here by 1 o'clock. Wendy, I'm just conscious that you had potentially some reflections.
In public excluded time, Bruce.
Oh, sorry?
Excluded time, I understood, but...
They're not ones that you would make publicly?
Well, I just think it wasn't on the agenda, so that would be my preference, but we could do it after the meeting closes.
Okay, why don't
Just
we
have
close
a
the meeting
conversation?
and then we can have.
Yep.
I would appreciate your reflections. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
that
was fine.
Okay,
Yeah, it was
so look,
just-
in that case,
I've prepared some thoughts, seeing I was alerted this morning.
Okay, I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much, everybody. Andrea, thank you to the team, and Barbara, to the staff. Great papers. They have been very constructive, and we've had some good conversation this morning, which is great. We need to close. Sorry, thank you, Letitia, pointing to the Karakea. Okay, let's join in saying the Karakea, please. Unaunahi, 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 kei te uru tapanui, te watea, te nako, te tinana, te wā, i te ara takutu. Area, kua watea.